Good morning from IIT Gandhinagar. We continue our course on Indian knowledge systems with the theme this year of living traditions of Sanskrit. And this week, we are extremely happy to welcome Dr. Indulal, who will speak on the deep connections between Sanskrit and Ayurveda, one of the principal medical traditions in India, certainly for 2,500 years, if not much more. Dr. Indulal, you will find his entire profile on our website, which is iks.itgn.ac.in, and also the detailed theme of his talks. But very briefly, I would like to say more personally that I've been privileged to know him for not far from 20 years now, when he was working at the Ayurvedic Trust or AVP at Coimbatore. We had many friends there. And we have learned from his deep knowledge and dedication, and also his commitment to the discipline. So he's been with different institutions connected to Ayurveda, both in Tamil Nadu and in Kerala. I will not go into details here, but he has also been interviewed in international programs on Ayurveda, and you will find him a very quiet type of scholar, but all the more profound. So with this brief introduction, I will request Dr. Indulal to tell us today and tomorrow. Tomorrow, same time, exceptionally, it will be the same 11:30 IST, to convey to us this essential place that Sanskrit occupies in the Ayurvedic tradition. And this is perfectly in tune with the theme of our course. Thank you. Dr. Indulal.
Good morning. Thank you for assembling here to know about Ayurveda. I would like to personally thank Indian Institute of Technology, Gandhinagar, and Michelle Ji in person, because in the first days of our education, Ayurveda, we were taught that the knowing process is not complete just by knowing. Only when we act, when we experience, and when we maintain the continuity of that experience, then only it is complete. So though IIT doesn't have a department of Ayurveda, it came as an encouragement to know that you are keen to know about the relationship between Ayurveda and Sanskrit, because it definitely comes from a bodha or an awareness that this particular knowledge stream is in one way or other helpful for the society. I'm also thankful to the great masters, teachers, who kept this tradition alive, or else we would be discussing this as a historical piece like what we do for Vaimanika Shastra right now. So this, I'm going to deal with some part of Ayurveda, basically how this text is constructed and how that learning process is happening. And to know that what we actually lose when we try to translate it without understanding the real meaning of Ayurveda. This is from Kalidasa's Raghuvamsha, the first shloka, which we studied in school for two reasons. One, to teach us the spirituality, the spiritual connection between word and meaning. The second is their inseparable nature. The third is to show the way, and finally the possibility of knowing the real meaning of the word. I'm not going to the meaning. It says Vagartha Vivasamprupto, Vagartha Pradipatte, Jagadapidaru Vande Parvati Parameshwara. The reason for an Ayurvedic student, a medical student, to learn a kavyam or a poetry was, one, to make the journey in Sanskrit easier. And most of our texts are also written in Sanskrit poetry form. And then the second reason is that the first part of Raghuvamsha also, along with Sanskrit, communicates certain Ayurvedic principles in a hidden manner. So only to show the where we actually began. I'm not going to the details there. Going straight to the medical knowledge. Charaka Samhita, one of the principal texts on Ayurveda, divides everything in the world into Sat and Asat. Means what which is true and what which is untrue. And says that gives us 4 tools to know whatever is Sat and Asat. That is Aptobdesha, Pratiksha, Anumana, and Yukti. We will not deal with Yukti here. Yukti, translated as logic, it also speaks about Yojana, or combining different things together to make the knowledge effective in a practical sense. So it's a physician's responsibility to combine the patient, the medicine, the treatment, the paramedical staff, etc. The logic with which he combines or she combines it is Yukti. We will not deal with it. For another reason is that textually it is also brought under Anumana or inference. So that leaves us with 3 options, that is Aptopadesha, Pratyaksham, and Anumana. Aptopadesha is Shabda, the knowledge preserved in the form of sound in that way. And Apta here is that individual whose knowledge is true according to the text in all past, present, and future. And that comes without any doubts, which leaves no doubt to accept. And this basically comes because of the as per the definition, the spiritual qualities, the mental qualities, and finally the approach or the attitude, which is unbiased or unprejudiced. For these reasons, whatever provided under that category is considered to be the valuable knowledge preserved in the form of Shabda. And this is the prior knowledge needed to apply the other 2 things, that is Pratyaksham and Anumana. Pratyaksham means the sensory, the use of our senses to observe and understand. And Anumanam is the inference we do that. So only when we have the prior knowledge, we can make the other 2 possible tools effective. And for that reason, we say that we have only two tools to know, that is Pratyaksha and Anumana. And what makes that possible is Aptobdesha, or the knowledge preserved in the form of words. The medical knowledge transmission, this is a verse from Ashtanga Hridaya. When we speak about Shabda, or the knowledge preserved in the form of sound, it was both in the way it was orally communicated and written communicated. So what we see today as Ayurveda is a mixture of both the streams, which sometimes ran parallelly, sometimes merging at different points in that, but contributed. But when the education system became very formalized, institutionalized, slowly the oral tradition took a back seat and mainly dominated by the written streams. But even when you look at it, this particular reference from Ashtanga Hridaya, talking about the mythological origin and the knowledge transmission, you find there is a transition from an oral stream to a written stream. If you look at here in the first line, you find that Ajigrahat, that means something directly communicated by the teacher to the student, whether starting from Brahma, the creator, through the other disciples in a sequence. It was communicated directly from teacher to the student. And finally, when it reaches the students or the masters like Agni-Vesha, they started writing the text. So whatever text in the print form, whether it is, we are going to see about it, those were the last phase of that transition. So this particular reference speaks about the eternity of Ayurveda, that it speaks, it's even Brahma, it's not saying it is Mrit, he uses the word Smritva. That means Brahma recollected it, didn't write it. That means it was there existing even before that. To speak about the eternity of it. The second is the continuity, an unbroken continuity. And the third is the transition from an oral to a written tradition. We are speaking about the formal, institutional or codified knowledge. And these are the major medical texts. We split it into 2 categories. This division came later on. This is not what the text speaks. Charaka Samhita, Sushruta Samhita, Ashtanga Hridaya. Charaka Samhita is the principal text, mainly focusing on as per the modern definitions, general medicine. Sushruta Samhita, the other dominant branch, surgery, and Ashtanga Hridaya is nothing but the compilation or the essence of all the 8 branches of Ayurveda. And Likutrayi is the lighter or the lesser version, Madhavanidhana, which speaks about the pathology, Sarngadhara Samhita, which speaks about the formulations, the medicine manufacturing, and Bhava Prakash and Nikhandu, which is the our main reference for the medicinal plants. Together, this 6 constitutes the core of Ayurveda medical knowledge, whether it is the theory, the practice, the single drugs, the therapies, or its application, or the manufacturing of the medicines. All written in Sanskrit, all, most of them except Charaka Sushruta Samhita in the poem form. Even the knowledge about the medicines comes as verses, shlokas. When we speak about the medical knowledge, all this text speaks about that this is mainly consisting of 3 skandhas or 3 sutras. So we forget about the philosophy and other aspect of it, and then focus on the medicine alone as a preventive and as well as a curative form. It says that Swastha and Atura. Swastha is a person who is healthy, and Atura is the person who is sick. So for whatever the knowledge in the medical text available for both the healthy and the unhealthy is into 3 categories. That is Hetu, Linga, and Aushadha. Hetu speaks about the cause, Linga about the characteristic features or the clinical features, and Aushadha is the remedy. The remedy either or the medicine or the therapy is meant to maintain health or to regain health. So if you look at the details that are provided into 3 categories, it actually suffice to know, understand any disease that is mentioned in the text, Ukta Vyadhi, or that is not mentioned in the text, that is Anukta Vyadhi. So keeping aside all other things and just focusing on disease, medicine, treatment, preventive, curative alone, the textual knowledge falls into these 3 categories, Hetu, Linga, and Aushadha. This is what primarily constitutes Aptobadesha or Shabda Pramana, or the knowledge that is stored in the form of words in Sanskrit. This particular knowledge is being used as the foundation to apply when you are in a real clinical setting, to see, watch a patient, to observe the conditions. And then the entire understanding of that particular disease is as per the presentation in that particular individual, that we leave the text there and then bring it into that particular individual. And then we customize a treatment or a diet or a prescription to ensure that this particular disease, as mentioned in the text, being presented in this particular patient in this particular way, gets benefited or get cured because of this particular intervention. So we use the textual knowledge as the foundation. We use the Pratyaksha and Anumana, or the observation and inference, as the tools to individualize or have an individualized understanding of the pathology and to apply an individualized method of management. The way the knowledge is presented, this is very important. The first reference is from Ashtanga Sangraha. The second reference is from Charaka Samhita. So it says that this particular test without asthana, nothing is told, everything is told in the correct space. It's not told in an erratic manner. Whatever that needs to be explained, it is explained. There is nothing that is objectionable, either to you or to other scholars. And there is no repetition. And wherever the portions that are cryptic in nature, things are illuminated, its meanings are correctly explained. And it has avoided all the contradictions within the author and with other authors. And it's what is written in red is Yuganu Rupa Sandarbha. This is being written according to the requirements of this particular yuga. It says Kali Yuga, saying that something that could be understood and applied in a format that is easy for the students of this particular yuga. Coming to the second shloka, second reference from Charaka Samhita, he says that I am presenting this knowledge as Puranam, that is ancient, cha punarnava, and also as punarnava, something that is renewed in the form. So only the text speaks that only something, the knowledge that could be constantly renewed and made available in a format or in a form or method that could be understood and applied to the current generation or current population, that only becomes effective. So this is the reason this has been constantly renewed, and what we have as the text is something that comes after many revisions and many changes. Here I would like to take you to this reference of Aurobindo, with your permission, Vishayaji. He says that all the classical texts have two components, that is temporary and perishable, and eternal and imperishable. The temporary and perishable belongs to the ideas of people and period and the country in which, limited to the time and place. The other is something that is beyond time and space, Desha Kala Atita. And he says very clearly that only those scriptures are the things which can be constantly renewed, relived, their stuff of permanent truth constantly reshaped and developed in the inner thought and spiritual experience of a developing humanity, continue to be of a living importance to mankind. So if Ayurveda is a living tradition, it's not because of what Brahma told many time immemorial. It's because the teachers, the speakers, the practitioners, they have kept this tradition alive. They have kept their roots very close to the tradition, but the application they kept on modifying according to the need and the requirement of the time. So how do we differentiate between what is perishable, what is imperishable knowledge? You have a text and you don't know how to do it. The text says that there are two types of shabdas. One that comes from Parama Apta. That means the supreme scholars, like say Brahma in this context. Other is Laukika, or more material in nature, and then limited to their knowledge that is limited to time and space. So whatever that comes from the ultimate teacher or the superior teacher whose knowledge is beyond time and space, that needs to be accepted as imperishable. And what is Laukika? That is something limited to time and space. That is considered as perishable. Perishable in the sense it loses its reference in another country or another time. That's all it says. And it belongs to four types. Something where the meaning is directly perceivable. Most of the text speaks about that. And there are meanings that cannot be perceived because the text speaks about the concept of moksha or an emancipation, which can only be experienced at some point of time, which is not something which we see immediately. And broadly, it is into satya and asatya or anurudha, that is truth and untruth. So with that, the classical text falls into the first three categories. It contains most of the things contains drishtartha. That's the reason why it says towards the end that because this comes as agama, which has come from the great teachers, and it has got a pratyaksha bhalam. That means a perceivable, immediately perceivable effect or a result, a positive result. For that reason, you need to consider these teachings as mantra or something that needs to be revered. But everything that falls outside that category, that needs to be, that are questioned and then not taken as an authentic or an imperishable knowledge. So one of this, what the foundation of Ayurveda knowledge, it's known as, in today's words, it is known as Mula Siddhanta. Mula means the root or the foundation. Siddhanta is the principles. So the concepts about the five elements, Pancha Mahabhuta, the three doshas, seven dhatus, Agni, Srotas, it remains the same. 100 years back or 1000 years back, it's going to remain the same if Ayurveda's understanding and application is going to be in the same manner without being influenced by the modern medical system. It is going to be the same, say 100 or 1000 years later. So this Siddhanta, Charaga defines that it's something that has been arrived upon after Bahuvidha Pariksha, being examined in different ways. Bahuvidha means different ways, multiple ways. Sadhayitva, where you have substantiated it with certain reasons. And then Sthapana, that means establishing it. So whatever these theories have been in their own way, not a modern methodology, in their own way have been examined, substantiated and established. So that Siddhanta, which is that conclusion, which is constitute only the Mula Siddhanta foundation, it remains imperishable, it is eternal. It's just like a foundation of a building. You may make renovations, you may change the paint, you may alter the structure upward, but the foundation remains the same. The Ayurveda is just like that. The Mula Siddhanta remains the same. The way it is being presented or communicated or researched, it changes according to time and space. The knowledge availability in the text, this comes from the three principal text. It says that all the first chapters, it says that I'm going to now explain about this particular chapter. And then the second part of it, Yatho Vaja Bhagavan Dhanvantari, or Idihasmaha Bhagavan Atraya, or Idihasmahu Atraya Deva Maharsha. This carries a relevance here. It's saying that this particular author of this text is not presenting anything limited to his knowledge, and that he is presenting what is told to him by his teacher. And the commentary uses this particular nyaya or maxim called Duda Sandesha Vachana Nyaya. Duda is the messenger, Sandesham is the message, Vachana is being it's just like I'm communicating what is being told to you without making any, without adding or interpreting anything with my limited knowledge or apprehensions. So that comes as a sort of an approval. And that also comes as a reminder how we need to accept this particular knowledge. So the entire text, every chapter starts with only the chapter name states changes, but the statement remains the same. Idihasmahu. This is how it has been given to me. So it again speaks about the continuity of the knowledge. There is a question whether how much we can actually be convinced about that authenticity of the knowledge. There are assumptions that we lost many things in between, but whatever that is there, with the support of the commentary and other editions, what is available in the text format have been substantiated to be authentic. Now the text construction, each of them, it says that how, from the reason for presenting this to know that how each of this constituent is actually important to know about essence. So it says, Ashtanga Hridayam, the commentary, it says that pada is the word. A combination of pada forms a sentence. A combination of sentence forms a topic. A combination of topics together constitute one chapter. And few chapters together constitute a sthana or a section. And many sthanas together constitute a tantra or a treatise. Here the word tantra, shastra, you find it comes, they use the terms alternatively. Tantra because it does, the knowledge helps us to do sharira dharana. That means maintain our body. So that's the reason why Tantranath. It helps us to overcome health. It helps us to maintain health. So for that reason, it supports or sustains body. That's the reason why it is known as Tantra. So this is how it's being created. A text is being, this is a typical example, Charaka Samhita. You can find that there are Sutrasthana, Nidhanasthana. Sutrasthana, the 30 chapters, it speaks about the fundamental principles of Ayurveda. And it's like a sutra, that sutra is a thread, which like a thread that runs through different beads of a garland. Then you don't see the thread, you see a garland together, but inside it runs without being seen. So the sutra of what we study as part of the sutra, it runs through the entire chapter, entire text throughout. Initially very obvious, and thereafter it is hidden. Sthana 30 chapters, it's again divided into a set of 7 sets of 4 chapters. These are all structures which we need to understand it, not just reading and the context in which that has been created. Nidhanasthana speaks about the pathologies. Vimanasthana gives new dimensions, quantification. Sharirasthana, Sharira is the body, we will see later. Sharirasthana, in modern translation, it speaks about anatomy. But if you look at it, it speaks about life from birth to death. Only 2 chapters in Ashtanga Hridayam, 6 chapters, only 2 chapters speaks about little anatomy. Indriyasthana speaks about, sorry, there is a spelling mistake there. Indriyasthana speaks about the use of the senses or the changes that are happening in the prana or the vital energy of the individual, which shows the signs of an impending death. Chikilsasthana speaks about treatment. Kalpasthana speaks about formulations, and Siddhisthana speaks about trusted, successful methodologies, treatments. So that's how a text is constructed. And there was a practice earlier in Kerala, for example, that Ashtanga Hridayam, that most, I won't call it the simplest, but the smallest text which covers everything. The Sutrasthana, which contains 30 chapters also. But the first 15 chapters were taught to students who were keen to learn Sanskrit, because that was the way to help them learn Sanskrit and also learn something to maintain their health or to prevent diseases. So that culture or that practice of chanting the 15 chapters of Sutrasthana and learning it by heart, memorizing it, that was there. Now the step-by-step learning, we are starting with the pada again, because that's how a text the creation started, for a textual construction started from the word pada. So this is again from Ashtanga. So this commentary gives the example of the word, Ayurveda. It's a combination of two words, Ayu and Veda. So he gives how to understand the word Ayu. The pada is there, the word is Ayu. And the meaning is that it's translated as life, but the real meaning is eti, that which goes. It's not something that is static. It's always dynamic. It's in the process of, every second, every millisecond, we are losing life. In the sense, we are moving closer to. So it speaks about that. That's a real meaning of Ayu. Then say that what is the purpose? It says that to attain completeness in life. And in the textual manner, it speaks about dharma, artha, sukha, sadhana. It's meant attain purushartha, which is nothing but attaining completeness or in life. Then comes the doubt. You speak about dharma there, because that's the purpose of life. And you do many adharmas there. And text speaks very clearly that there are certain non-vegetarian items which is being prescribed as medicine. You speak about dharma. This is adharma. Then how do you say that this particular thing could be useful for the life? Then it's saying that parihara, clarity is there. So this is being done for to sustain life. It is not done for krida. It's not done for our pleasure or for us to indulge. This is done with a purpose which is noble in nature. For that reason, it becomes dharma. It is not adharma. Then, like that, you try to relate it, the word with, of course, the relation, significance of life need not be explained, but it is all told in her. So, like this is the way we are supposed to understand each of the word. So this is the process that is being told. Like that, we have a total understanding of text. The mode of learning, these are again Sanskrit references. The first two lines speaks about the direct learning from the teacher. It's always in the presence of the teacher and in a live condition. And the third one, it speaks about certain strategy. So like the learning of the Vedas, it speaks about Adhidi, Bodha, Acharana, Prajarana. Or like say Nididhyasana, meditation. This is being a science, it's being told in a slightly different manner. Padha, Avabodha, and Anushtana. Padha is learning the text or the understanding the Shabda, or repeating it. Avabodha means means understanding the meaning and internalizing it. And Anushtana means practicing it. That's the way we need to study Ayurveda. This is very similar to the other thing like Adhiti, Bodha, Acharana, and Pracharana. Acharana means practice, Pracharana means propagation. That actually comes under Anushtana. Adhyayana, Adhyabana, Tadvidya, Sambhasha are advanced one, that to learn, to teach, and to engage into debate. That's how most of the time it follows the other pattern, like of the discussions are based on how do you understand a pada, and then how it could be related and what the significance could be understood. So this speaks about the questions asked to test a physician. It starts with prashna. That was the, because see, it says that every text in the beginning, we will see tomorrow the translation, say that it uses a word called as ata. Mean that it is requiring, it's the requirement of a student. He or she needs to be doubtful in nature, and he or she needs to be questioning in nature. So everything starts with creating a curiosity in the student, and everything starts with creating an interest in the student to learn. So this, in that, the Charaka Samhita excels, because it's like a catechism, that like a communication between the teacher and the student. It's always like questions and answers. And Ashtanga, it's a monologue. The teacher speaks to them. That's the reason why one of my teachers used to say the quality of Ayurvedic education dropped when we shifted from Charaka Samhita to Ashtanga. So here in this one, it starts with a prashna. Prashna means the question, the fourth one. And then prashna artha. What is the meaning of that? Then adhyaya. Adhyaya artha, the meaning of the sthana, sthanartha, tantra, tantrartha. So gradually, from a question is being asked, a curiosity is being created, and an interest to know more is generated, and then slowly build up that, and then come to know the entire text in the right manner. And this is being told, happening through three ways, that is Vakyasha, Vakyarthasha, and Arthavayavasha. The three things it is being told in the second. I will explain that. So how can one explain the classical text, its sections, chapters, specific topics in an effective manner? Say that it's possible in three ways. Vakya is the word, Vakyartha, or the sentence. Vakya is the sentence. Vakyartha is the meaning of the sentence, and Arthavaya is the more minute understanding of it. So Vakyasha here, the text of the sages should be reproduced fully and in the order. And Vakyarthasha, get into the meaning and explain elaborately, concisely, using these 5 tools, which falls under, again, it's comes from the Shaddarshanas, the way Upamana or Anumana is picked. It's saying Anumana is 2 types, Parartha Anumana for somebody else, and then Swartha Anumana for my own sake. So it started, I need to be convinced first, then only I can convince others. So the tools are Pradijna Hetu, the Udaharana, Upanaya, and Nikapana. Like it gives the example of fire and smoke, the famous example in the philosophy. Say that I see there is fire there. That is Pradijna. You are making a statement, a proposition there. Saying that because I see smoke. And the third is Udaharana. Wherever there is smoke, there is fire, as in a kitchen. And then fourth is Upanaya Kapari. There is smoke there, as in a kitchen. Then finally conclude, there is fire. So each sentence, we have to go through this process of proposition, reasoning, using the examples, substantiating, and then finally concluding. Artha Avayava, the third one is the repeat. If you don't know the meaning, wherever there is difficulty to know, you're repeating the examination and then analyzing it further until we have the clarity. So in another way, we spoke about the pada, now we are speaking about a sentence. And this is how slowly we build up and understand the entire tantra. This is another tool which is used in other knowledge streams also. But here, more specifically, Charaka Samhita and Sustains-1 speaks about 32 to 36 types of Tantra Yukti. Tantra means the same, that which sustains our body, our life. Yukti means how, for 2 reasons. Why, how this Vakya, Pada and Vakya, how they have been combined to create this treatise, this text. And then that particular knowledge, how do we actually combine it to make it useful for someone else? So you find a combination of both. Tantra Yukti, or these are the tools to understand the text, and these are also the tools to apply them effectively. So different meanings are there. Tantra Yukti helps us to have a proper understanding. It brings enlightenment, like it says that how a flower blossoms by sun, like that the meanings becomes clear. And this is also used effectively in discussions where either to authenticate my statement or to refute a misrepresentation of the other aspect. So this is very elaborately told as Tantra Yukti. It's also the logic to understand the text. Both the Charaka Samhita and Suchrita Samhita speaks about it. I'm from Kerala, and the language Malayalam is very close to it, originated from Sanskrit. So for that reason, many of the translations were closer to, because we use the same terms like dosha, shrotas, we use the same term. So it was easier for us. But it doesn't happen the same way when you use other languages which are unrelated to Sanskrit for the communication of Ayurveda. So in Kerala, because of this proximity, this relationship between Malayalam and Sanskrit, because of the importance they give to Sanskrit for the understanding of Ayurveda, they are even originated a separate language called as Manipravala. It's known as Bhasha Samskrita Yoga. Bhasha here is Malayalam, Sanskrit is not. It's a combination of Sanskrit and Malayalam. So Alati or Manipravala is one rare text which speaks about many formulations very effectively used by the physicians in Kerala. So if you look at this particular shloka, it's in Malayalam mostly, but you find a combination of Malayalam and in the first one, Aritva. So in the it's a combination of Malayalam and Sanskrit, but it can be standalone Sanskrit topics also, like Pibada or Vinashedishwalam. So you find text even of that variety giving importance which actually left Sanskrit, but it's a combination of Sanskrit and Malayalam. Such an influence of Sanskrit was also there in the Vaidya traditions of Kerala. Now, the basic learning, this is the last thing to say, that it says, this one here, it says that Punar Avarted. So the textual thing, like what we saw earlier, so that need to be repeated. So the reason is that in order to learn from the teacher with clear voice, attentively, and repeating it over and over again, enter into the right meaning to get rid of one's own defects and also to get rid of the defects that are being presented by others. So this was a pattern of repetition. So this, like chanting, we call it as Parayana. And there is one example here, which I would like to.
Nidanam Purvarupani.
When the students are chanting one shloka from Nidanasthana, Ashtanga Hridayam, find that it's a shloka is 2 lines. It has got 4 padas. That means in different colors in that way. Nidanam Purvarupani is the first pada. Rupanyupashyastada is the second pada. Sampraptischedi Vijnanam is the third pada. And Roganam Panchadas Vratam is the 4th pada. So they repeat each one 3 times, and then each line 3 times, and then finally one shloka. And by then, the shloka is internalized. Then they go into the word by word analysis. So this we see only the Parayana as a model. These are students from Amrita School of Ayurveda.
Nidanam Purvarupani.
Nidanam Purvarupani.
Nidanam Purvarupani.
Nidanam Purvarupani.
Nidanam Purvarupani.
Nidanam Purvarupani.
Rupanyupashayastadha.
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 Nidanam Purvarupani. Rupanyupashayastadha.
Nidanam Purvarupani. Rupanyupashayastadha.
Nidanam Purvarupani. Rupanyupashayastadha.
Nidanam Purvarupani. Rupanyupashayastadha.
Sampraptischedi Vijnanam.
Sampraptischedi Vijnanam.
Sampraptischedi Vijnanam.
Sampraptischedi Vijnanam.
Sampraptischedi Vijnanam.
सम्प्राप्तिश्चेदि विज्ञानम्
रोगाणां पञ्चधा स्मृतम्
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 सम्प्राप्तिश्चेदि विज्ञानं रोगाणां पञ्चधा स्मृतम्
सम्प्राप्तिश्चेदि विज्ञानम् रोगाणां पञ्चधा स्मृतम्
सम्प्राप्तिश्चेदि विज्ञानं रोगाणां पञ्चधा स्मृतम्
सम्प्राप्तिश्चेदि विज्ञानम् रोगाणां पञ्चधा स्मृतम्
निदानं पूर्वरूपाणि रूपाण्युपशयस्तथा सम्प्राप्तिश्चेति विज्ञानं रोगाणां पञ्चधा स्मृतम्
निदानं पूर्वरूपाणि रूपाण्युपशयस्तथा सम्प्राप्तिश्चेदि विज्ञानम् रोगाणां पञ्चधा स्मृतम्.
This is it. So this is still a life tradition, practice. So though Ayurveda education, curriculum, pedagogy, everything have changed, but this is being still continued by sincere learners, that they go through this process, because everything is communicated earlier. And whatever I say, whatever I do, it needs to be substantiated by some pramana. So what the text speaks, then only it gets authenticated in a real sense. So for that, the aptobadesha, or the knowledge in the textual format, needs to be internalized. And this is the process. I think I will end here, and then we'll continue tomorrow with the translation, the next part of it.